everyone, and welcome to the next part of the David Grimm What If? Now, before I begin, I want to say thank you to all the comments, likes, and views of the last video, as well as the votes in the community tab poll. I really appreciate it, and it helps motivate me to continue this series / type of videos for you. So last time, David was in Sinnoh to get Zoroark, and then his mons got stolen by his father, and now he's heading off to Kalos to get them back, while also dealing with a rise in Pokemon contests for the region. Fun! Our story continues with David on a boat heading to the new region. Since there's not much he can do but wait, much to his irritation, he decides to pass the time / relieve his anxiety over losing his Pokemon by exercising / using the gym a bunch. It takes about a week or so to arrive, since it's farther away than other regions, but when David arrives, he's got a bit of a design change. And by that I mean he's a bit more swole. But because David is, well, David, he didn't do it the smart way by taking proper breaks, and now he's been sore / in pain for a couple of days. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, David is smart in some aspects, but kind of an idiot in others. But at least he's a bit stronger, so if he runs into Vincent again, he'll stand a slightly better chance against him in a fight. Anywho, since Comarine City was the best way to get into Kalos according to his boss, it's gonna take David a bit to find the contest halls and his Pokemon, so yeah, it's gonna be a bit. After finding a place to sit and contacting his boss to update him of his current status, he overhears some arguing nearby and decides to go deal with it so he can get some peace and quiet. He comes across a nearby resort and spots the guy arguing with the manager. "My tab's already paid off, asshole."
"Yeah, well, you still can't drink our special lemonade after what happened last time."
"Oh, come on!" David then hands the manager 1,000 Poké Dollars. Is this enough to stop this stupid shouting match?
"A little more than our usual price, but fine. We'll give him one with your money."
"Thanks, Matt. I owe you one." "That's fine. I just wanted the shouting to end so I can relax." Sorry about that. Me and my dad tend to go at it like a ram sometimes. What's your name, anyways?" "David Grimm. Yours?" "Just call me Fire." "Sure thing, Fire. Anyways, I must be off. I got a Pokemon to find." "Alright, I'll see you around then." The two then waved goodbye to one another, and David began his trek to Lumio City. Fortunately, the trek through Route 13 wasn't too bad, especially since David was running away from hordes and hordes of Pokemon chasing after him since he had no Pokemon on hand to fight them. Needless to say, it was good exercise. After arriving in Lumio City, he saw a couple trainers leaving a building with what appeared to be starter Pokemon from this region, but what specifically got his attention was the lack of a water-type starter on them. Could this region be the first he's visited that doesn't have a water type? Though, he did freeze up in fear after seeing the Fennekin sneeze fire, which got a weird look from the trainers, before proceeding to walk away, and David entered the building. Sure enough, it was the Pokemon lab of the region. So as David waited behind this kid waiting to get his starter, he did get a glimpse of the starters the professor had, and his earlier question was answered when he saw a palish blue creature on the table.
"Ew, this toad one looks dead. I'll take the Fennekin."
The blue creature lowered its head in sadness as the trainer took the Fennekin and left, meaning that David was next. The professor put a new Fennekin on the table and smiled. "Hello, drunk Sereno. Oh, you're a bit older than most, but better late than never, I'd say. So, which one will you take on your journey?" I thought professors only had the 3 starters and no duplicates." "Normally, yes, but Kalos has a lot more young trainers in this region, so there's a lot more starters to go around through breeding. And the Atlantis daycare is a big help in that. Sadly though, not all Pokemon are treated equal here." "Has anyone claimed this white frog yet?" This got the Froakie's attention as it slowly raised its head. "No, actually. We thought it was sick initially, but when the doctors examined this little guy, they said he was perfectly healthy, but no matter what I do, people keep refusing to take it." "Trust me, I know that feeling of neglect and loneliness. That's why I try to help those, including Pokemon, not go through what I did when I was younger." David then kneels down and smiles at the Froakie. "And today, it's your turn." Froakie smiled before hopping on David's shoulder and hugging him. "I say, you've chosen Froakie as your starter. Well, here are your mandatory items. Good luck on your journey." "Thank you, Professor. We'll do our best." Froakie and David waved goodbye to the professor before proceeding to get something to eat and find out where to go next. David is rubbing the Froakie's head while he looks at the map, getting some weird looks from trainers thinking he has a dead Pokemon, and decides to head to Campfire Town since that was close to one of the contest halls his boss mentioned. During one of the routes, David and Froakie decide to do some training. 2 mixed results because of Froakie's low level at the time. Fortunately, David was there to help with recovery items and first aid, and after Froakie was exhausted from the training, they took a good long break to relax and regain their energy. "Don't worry, Froakie. Soon you'll have more friends to play with besides me." Froakie smiles before getting under David's hand, and David proceeds to massage Froakie's head again. One's a bit overprotective, but they mean well. One loves training just as much as I, and the other's a bit overexcited, but they also really care. You'll get along with them just fine. After some time passes, the two resume their training with newfound vigor and motive, and as the night conquers the sunlight, the pale darkness is engulfed in a bright light for a brief moment before it fades. Froakie, you evolved! Awesome! The two give each other a high five for a job well done before Frogadier falls backwards, exhausted from the training. You deserve a good rest, Patty.
Later.
So they decide to look for the contest hall in the town and find it in the Chabonneau Castle. But instead of entering with his real name, he decides to use a code name to prevent suspicion. And thus his coordinator name is born, the Ghost Ninja. Subtle, I know. As he waits for the prelims to begin, he spots a redhead and her parents talking a few feet away about something, and is about to go ask them to shut up, because he can hear them loudly, but then decides against it. Remembering the advice Fantina gave him back in Sinnoh, he puts on a more confident and booming voice so that his moms can hear him better through the mask, but also muffles it enough to prevent getting recognized. Somewhat. And also to make him think he's not the person associated with failure. Positivity. After a few coordinators went out and performed, it was David's turn. Starting off with a smoke screen for an entrance, Frogadier shows off its ninja-like traits through the use of Substitute, quick attacking the Substitute doll, shooting bubbles into the air, and then freezing them with Ice Beam to create a spectacle for the audience as the balls of water explode into an Aurora Borealis-like display, ending his preliminary performance. This gets the audience's attention, but it also gets the attention of the redhead, who was initially sleeping through most of the round up to this point, but got woken up by the oohs and ahs from the coordinators. The redhead, now awake, sees David's performance and raises a brow. It was as if he did something like this before, but she never saw him in a contest prior to this point. Regardless, her parents whispered into her ear and she sighed before getting up and getting ready to go perform. David walked past her in the halls and said hi, but she ignored him and kept going. David was confused about this at first, but ultimately shrugged it off and returned to the dressing room to see the TV unplugged. After some time, the TV turns back on, and the redhead returns to the room. The results play soon after, and David moves on to the next round, as well as the redhead, now referred to as Susan, the legendary phoenix on the TV. Now we get into the second round, battles, and David and Susan are the first to fight. David goes over to Susan to wish her the best of luck, but Susan slaps the hand away.
This won't take long. You won't take a point away from me. Do try your best, though. Make it a good show.
David is about to say something about it, but leaves it be for now, and the two face off. David with Frogadier, and Susan with Delcatty. Almost immediately, Delcatty goes on the attack, comboing Frogadier before it gets a chance to do anything, and then throwing it to the ground with a shockwave from the tail. In less than a minute, David is down to half of his point total. Delcatty is about to unleash another shockwave on Frogadier, but before it hits, Frogadier hits the lightning with Ice Beam, covering the crater/area with frozen lightning bolts. Delcatty and Susan are surprised by this, and Frogadier uses this chance to grab one of the bolts and chucks it at Delcatty, but Delcatty's ability kicks in and avoids the bolt. Frogadier tries again with more bolts, but Delcatty continues to dodge, reducing David's point total further. Delcatty then gets close to Frogadier again and hits him with a Hyper Beam. Frogadier tries to block it with a frozen bolt, but it breaks under the immense pressure of the beam and is engulfed in the blast, bringing David's total down to 5%. Susan sighs.
And with that, the performance is over. No matter what you do, you won't win. But still, though, it was fun.
I'll give you this, Susan. You're certainly good. But Frogadier is still standing. So let's end this performance with a twist ending!
Nothing but bravado. Delcatty, Hyper Beam it one more time.
But out of the smoke, a frozen bolt appears and heads right for Delcatty. Its ability kicks in once more and dodges, firing the Hyper Beam at the source, but one more item pops out of the smoke above the Hyper Beam. Frogadier, with 2 frozen bolts in his hands, before proceeding to use the bolt as portable wires on the Hyper Beam, shattering the ice around the lightning and sending the current towards Delcatty, while also using the same current to send Greninja towards the cat at the cost of paralysis. Delcatty calls off the Hyper Beam before it hits, but it's too late, as Frogadier reaches Delcatty and charges it with a waterfall while also having it surrounded by the residual lightning from the attack. Delcatty takes the direct hit from the Frogadier, paralyzing the cat as well as sending Delcatty into a wall. But the timer rings before Delcatty and the wall collide with each other, and David fails miserably. However, Susan is stunned, as is her parents. David managed to take out 25% of her point total with that final act. Sure, she managed to defeat him still, but this certainly knocked her down a peg. David offers her a handshake, but Susan sadly walks away from the arena. David gives Frogadier a hug for a job well done, and the two head back to get Frogadier healed up and get ready to watch the next match. But as he is doing so, he overhears some shouting in one of the dressing rooms and gets up to deal with the issue, only to get the door slammed open in his face by Susan's parents holding a Pokeball in the mother's hand.
Apologies, Ghost Ninja. We didn't see you.
Look, that's whatever. Mind telling me why the shouting? We could hear it over here.
Oh, that was our daughter. She saw the shouting and we punched her accordingly. Anyways, good luck next time, Ghost.
David shook his head after they left and decided to go check up on Susan, but she just slammed the door in his face as soon as she saw him, though he did hear her crying on the other side. Letting her have some time alone, he decides to go to the stands as David and watch the next match, only to get told that the contest had been cancelled due to a virus. David immediately thought this was suspicious, and as he left the arena, he began to ponder. Shouting match, Susan crying, her parents holding a Pokeball? Is it possible that those two had something to do with canceling the event? No, that doesn't add up. They wouldn't cancel the whole thing just because one person was thrown off the game. After he pondered this, he decided to go to a nearby restaurant in town to celebrate their achievement in taking at least 1 point away and find their next destination. They cross-referenced the location and determined the first Pokemon beacon to be in Geosense Town. After finishing their meal and leaving the place, David spots Susan in her non-contest attire, walking in the pouring rain with no umbrella. Noticing this, David goes over and puts his umbrella under her head, surprising her. It's okay. I'll keep the umbrella over you until you reach your car or destination, and then I'll go on my way. I'm not gonna hurt you, I'm not gonna touch you. Susan, silent for a moment, nods her head, and the two continue their walk. The two introduced themselves as they walked, and made short small talk before Susan arrived at her car.
Alright, so we're here. Thanks again. You didn't need to do that, though.
Well, I saw someone who needed help, so I figured it'd be the right thing to do. As Susan gets inside and David puts Susan's umbrella back on himself, she smiles.
So ignorant of a mindset you have. But after the day I had, maybe I'm the one with the ignorant mindset. Anyways, I'll see you around, David.
The two say goodbye to each other, and David / Frogadier continue their journey to Geosense. Along the way, Frogadier learned a couple new moves, which was good, because when they arrived in Silage City, there was a Tyrant rampaging around the area and destroying things and hurting Pokemon. The scientists tried to get it to calm down, but it was to no avail, and they were knocked aside. David sighs. Don't worry, I got an idea to get it to calm down.
And what's that, genius?
By beating the crap out of it. But David kept going with his plan, and Frogadier got Tyrant's attention with a few ice bubbles, before proceeding to hit Frogadier in the stomach via stomp. Oops. Frogadier then got back up and shot an ice beam at Tyrant, freezing its jaw before getting pissed off enough to charge into various things to try and break the ice off. Frogadier and David just shook their head at this display. Yeah, it's a child, alright. Alright, Frogadier, finish it off with Waterfall. Tyrant is then slammed into a wall and is knocked out. Good job, Frogadier. Hey, you guys mind if I throw a ball at it?
I just want this thing to stop, so just hurry up and do it.
David then throws the ball and captures the Tyrant. Alright, we did it! Frogadier is about to give his buddy a high five, but as he's running, he doesn't notice the glow around him, and then slams into his trainer by accident because now he's taller than before. Yep, this battle evolved Frogadier into a Greninja, and it took both trainer and Pokemon by surprise before the two proceeded to laugh off the accidental slam and get back up again. David then pulled Tyrant out of the ball and crossed his arms. Listen, I don't know your name yet.
It's Tyrant.
Thanks. It's Tyrant. I get that you're a kid or a baby Pokemon, but that doesn't mean you should use your power to hurt people. Look around you and see all the damage you did because of that. Tyrant refuses to turn around until he sees the newly evolved Frogadier near David and is scared into submission, noticing the destruction and pats her a bit before David pats its head. But that doesn't mean you can't learn from this and get stronger. Use that strength and apply it in a better fashion than going on a rampage. It may be hard for a mon like you, or it may be easy, but we can help you become even stronger and better than you are now. What do you say, Tyrant? Tyrant is still pouting for a bit before he proceeds to get back up and face David with a smile and a nod. That's a spirited little guy. David then returns Tyrant and Greninja to their respective balls and goes to help out the injured scientists. Fortunately, they aren't too seriously damaged, and after helping with their recovery a bit, the trio proceed to Geosense City. where there is a massive crater in the middle of town.
Okay, I know Tyrant had nothing to do with this.
After asking some of the civilians what caused the crater, he finds out it was basically a result of a team called Team Flare using an ultimate weapon and it backfiring hard. After that, he goes inside one of the houses that the map registered as one of those Pokemon's locations, only to find it in the hands of an armored figure.
Hand over that ball. I don't want to fight you.
The figure then turns around and pulls out a heavy ball, summoning Garchomp and creating a sandstorm as a result, which would work great in a wide area, but not in a cramped spot. Oops. So David sends out Tyrant, who throws a fit until he sees Garchomp and takes out his anger on the creature by slashing it repeatedly with Dragon Claw. The figure sees that this was a mistake and returns Garchomp to their ball.
Okay, this was a bad idea. Here, just take the ball and fuck off. My name is irrelevant to you. I am but a puppet to the master who pulls my strings. Farewell.
The figure fades into the remains of the sandstorm, and David and Tyrant escape in time, while also letting the sand out of the home. David pulls out Greninja, and then opens the ball to reveal Luxray, who is insanely happy to see his trainer again as he pounces on David and licks his cheek for a bit before David smiles. After a quick introduction to his Kalos team, and Tyrant trying to bite Luxray's tail before getting dragged away by Greninja, David determines their next location is Shaller City, home to the next contest hall, and Atlantis Daycare. As they made their way through Reflection Cave, Tyrant was slowly but surely warming up to Luxray, as it helped them and David through the Cave of Mirrors, and began to develop an appreciation towards the line. Maybe an Air/King-like figure isn't supposed to be focused on getting his way and throwing tantrums, but help others get their ways and desires. But that's for later on. Until then, David competes in the next contest. There's the twist this time. Susan is not present. Instead, one of their siblings is. Her sister, Saris. David was confused by this and decided to look further into this as he waited to perform in the preliminaries, and after finishing said preliminary performance, he found out that one of the doors to one of the dressing rooms were actually locked. He knocked and asked if anyone was changing, but got no response. After a couple more failed attempts, David just said, "Fuck it," and sent out Tyrant to force the door open, revealing Susan handcuffed to a chair and forced to watch the performances. David walked closer to Susan, and Tyrant was ready to bust Susan out, but as he got to her chair, someone grabbed David from behind and injected him with something. But before all of it went in, he punched the figure hard in the stomach and slammed him into a wall before his arms went limp and he cried out in pain as it felt like he was undergoing paralysis on his upper body. Tyrant then freed Susan and went over to identify David's attacker, while Greninja and Luxray popped out of their balls and helped David stay standing. He was about to try and turn around, but Susan stopped him.
You got a contest to compete in.
David then thanked her and left the room with his Pokemon assisting him as Susan directed her attention to the attack, who was her brother. "Sorry, sis. It's wanted to keep your record clean of losses." Susan paused for a moment before shaking her head and pulling out a Pokeball to reveal the Gardevoir, who then proceeds to levitate him to the chair, and then Susan uses her sweater as makeshift cuffs to hold him down. As for David, well, thankfully he wasn't injected with the full substance of whatever that was, so while he can't move his arms, he can still speak normally and move his legs after a few minutes. Now it was time for the next round, and after a bit, it was revealed that the match would be Saris versus David. Saris had no words for David, and the two proceeded to head to the arena. Saris sent out her Audino, and David, unable to use his Pokeballs, sent out his Greninja, still near his side. As the battle began, both were evenly matched. As time went on, Greninja began to overpower Audino with its faster speed and harder hitting attacks. Not even Audino's Spectacle could help Saris, as Greninja took the moves Audino was using and made it better through the use of Ice Beam and Waterfall. As Saris reached the halfway point, she smiled.
Not bad, but I have something you don't have, Ghost Ninja.
And what would that be?
Saris then pulled out a bracelet and activated the gemstone on it, engulfing Audino in an instant and transforming it into Mega Audino. Now David was getting overpowered due to Mega Audino's new typing and David's lack of understanding to this Mega Evolution stuff, bringing him down to 50%. But as Audino launched a Thunder Wave attack at Greninja, David smirked.
Greninja, what a shuriken!
Greninja immediately pulled out a water shuriken and began to spin it fast enough to reflect the waves of the thunder off it and send it all over the arena, causing Saris to lose points and causing Mega Audino to get paralyzed and stop the Thunder Wave attack, letting Greninja use Ice Beam on the water shuriken and charge towards Audino, who is now even slower. Audino tries using another fairy move on Greninja, but he's able to dodge it this time, and before Audino can use another one, Greninja smashes the shuriken in Audino's face with enough force to send it flying towards the wall, knocking it out and causing it to demorph, giving David the win. But as he leaves, the announcer says the rest of the contest is cancelled due to the previously mentioned incident with Susan's brother now throwing this place's safety into jeopardy.
Well, shoot.
So after saying this, he can move his arms again, so I guess it was a temporary thing after all. David tries to go check on Susan after this, but she's already gone, and her brother is also missing. Writing that off as suspicious, he gets changed back into his normal attire as soon as he can, and tries to rush outside the building and find them, but to no success. Until Luxray spots Susan and the brother in one car thanks to its special vision, and gets David on his back to chase after them, and eventually leading them to a forest where the car spins around and faces towards David and Luxray before proceeding to stop. After some silence, a speaker opens out of the front.
We should have you arrested for stalking us.
Oh yeah? Well, I could have you arrested for assault, kidnapping, and other charges. You really want to play that card after what happened to Susan?
Regardless, we are just keeping the contest's relevance that popular, and what better way to do that than to have someone with a perfect win streak as the icon?
You sound like a certain scumbag thief that I know of. Anyways, why are you doing all this?
Because we refuse to let Pokemon contests die off. This has been our brand for generations. And besides, what is the harm in getting rid of those boring battle maisons in favor of excitement and beauty?
Because that's a monopoly, and removes the appeal of going to a certain region if every region has them. Every region should be unique. You may find it boring, but others clearly don't. And when it's taken away, that does more damage than it helps. Now let Susan go.
I've heard this garbage before. They didn't stop us then, and they won't stop us now.
Maybe I can't, but I know one who can. After saying that, the car lowered its speakers and stepped on the gas to try and run David over. But right as David and Luxray were about to dodge, Tyrant popped out of the ball and bit the front hard. The driver tried stepping on the gas harder, causing Tyrant to flinch, but it kept on going. David and Luxray tried to get Tyrant to stop, but it wouldn't budge, and continued to bite down on it, despite the pain it was in. Because after seeing how far David and Luxray, as well as Greninja, went to protect the other, and realized that a true king is not about getting only his own desires, but to ensure that everyone in his kingdom gets their desires fulfilled. So as it lets out one last roar and stands its ground, it begins to glow, to everyone's surprise. With the front still in its mouth, it lifted the car above the ground a bit as the driver and passengers got a look at their new problem, Tyrantrum, who proceeded to gently put the car back down and give a death glare to the driver for trying to run him and his friends over. Noticing this, the car reverses and tries to speed away, and Tyrantrum is about to chase it down again, but then is stopped by the passenger door swinging open and Susan jumping out of the car, getting bruised a bit, but is out of there as the car continues on its way. Tyrantrum picks up Susan, and the group heads off to the center to recover. They spend the night in the center getting patched up, and ensuring Tyrantrum/Susan are okay, with David teaching new strategies to Greninja and Luxray, and also giving them some TLC once that's done. The next morning, while Susan is recovering, David decides to go to the Atlantis daycare, see if the location matches up with the second missing Pokemon ping, and sure enough, it is. It's Lopunny, but the daycare owners think David is trying to steal it. Cue David showing proof that it is his, and that his Pokemon were stolen by someone named Vincent, but while they do agree it's David, they point out Vincent never showed up, but a figure in yellow did, and also picked up an egg they had. David is confused about the latter and is about to leave when he comes across something odd. Do you have any relatives that work here? The male owner chimes in.
We have a couple grandchildren helping out, but they haven't shown up lately.
I see. Well, thank you for your time. David leaves the center and brings out Lopunny to see his new group of Mons, hugging David tightly again before proceeding to hug the others. But when she sees Luxray, she gets on her knees and sobs, leading Luxray to comfort her and David to become concerned. Tyrantrum glares at the daycare center. No, Tyrantrum. They didn't know Lopunny was stolen. Save your rage for the figure that stole them, and brought Lopunny and Luxray to this center. Tyrantrum soon lets out a sigh before picking up the two crying Mons and letting them use his back as a slide to try and cheer them up. And it eventually works. So, this is what you've been up to. Oh, hey Fire, what are you doing here? I came to check on an old buddy of mine, Susan. She got dinged pretty bad. How about we both go take care of that? Sure. The two then proceed to check up on Susan. After David returns his Pokemon, of course. After saying their pleasantries and ensuring that she's going to be okay, David decides to sit down and ask the serious question. I heard what the driver said. Who is that person?
That was my mother. She is the matriarch of the family, as well as the leader of the Pokemon Contest Corporation. She and my father are the reason why the battle maze on the lake got shut down. They got the money and power to make waves, but they only got that money through an icon to represent them. An unstoppable icon. A being. A passionate strength.
So it was them who were responsible for canceling that contest back in that castle. So if they had such a stranglehold over you, what made you want to escape that car and not stay?
What made you snap out of it? Honestly, it was because you and your Pokemon were the only few people I've ever seen stand up to my family and not put up with their BS. Either that, or seeing them get knocked down a peg like that gave me the right opportunity to escape without them chasing me down. But they're gonna be coming for me soon.
Well, we'll just have to stop that from happening. Yeah, I may be an idiot, but my Pokemon aren't. We can stop them from stealing you away and treating you like a slave. Susan was taken aback by this, but smiled.
Thanks, guys.
Before the three could resume chatting, though, a yellow figure bursts in and takes Susan. But David and Fire quickly surround them, and the figure sends out Garchomp to create the sandstorm needed to take Susan away. Except, in pulling out her Pokeball and summoning it, they let go of Susan. And when grabbing again, they actually grabbed David, since Susan got away in that short amount of time, and David was the closest. Once the figure noticed this after flying up the window, it tried to get back inside, but it was beaten to the ground by Fire's Mega Lopunny and Susan's Gardevoir. David was also in free fall, but was able to send out Tyrant just in time to make a safe landing by sliding down his back. So another save, thanks to Tyrant. Thanks, buddy. Also, thanks, guys. Now, to deal with you, yellow thing.
My mission is to get the girl back to her parents. That is all.
No, that is not your true mission. Because I am sure I know who you are. You're one of the Atlantis Daycare's grandchildren. The figure said nothing.
Incorrect. I am a puppet of the master.
Talking isn't going to do much. So let's just get this over with by having a battle. Fire, Susan, stay safe up there. The two nod as the match begins. Tyrantrum defeats Garchomp, but then the figure sends out Electros, who beats it. David then beats Electros with Lopunny, and then the figure sends out Samurott, who is defeated by Lopunny, going Mega, thanks to Fire, lending him his Mega Stone. With the figure defeated, it stands there silent until the daycare workers notice this and come out, which sends the figure into a shock and writhing on the floor. The daycare workers tell the figure to break free, as does David.
No, I am a puppet of the master.
You're wrong. You're your own master. You control your own fate, not someone else! Now take back control! But as the figure continued to cry out in pain, the figure grabbed its mask and proceeded to painfully rip it off until it was completely removed and threw it to the ground. And sure enough, it was the granddaughter of Atlantis Daycare's bosses, Fawn, who gets on both knees exhausted and begins to break down crying. Her grandparents coming to support her in this moment, and the others soon join in shortly after. Once things cool down, Fawn explains that one night she was captured by a man in black and in blonde hair and was forced into this armor, as well as mind-controlled into being his puppet for the sake of making sure he succeeds in the task he needs done. David asks Fawn about the egg, and Fawn explains that she was the one who put two of his Pokemon in the daycare under Vincent's order and forced the two to breed an egg. Fawn tells David that Lucario wasn't able to be bred with the Mon Vincent requested, so Lucario was instead sent to the top of the Tower of Mastery to rot. Fawn then states she's going with him to atone for her mistakes, but David tells them he'll go alone to ensure that Fawn and Susan will be safe from anyone else trying to go after them. David pulls out Tyrantrum, and the two dash towards the tower, where he rescues his partner after so long, and the two have a good hug before proceeding to head back down to meet up with the rest. Now that his team is fully reunited, all that's left now is to deal with the contest situation and then find Vincent. Later on, as David is about to leave for the next contest location as it gets on his Tyrantrum, Susan taps him on the shoulder and the two talk.
I'm going back to my parents.
So, after everything, you're still...
Not to rejoin them, but to leave the corporation officially. Fact is, I am the master of my own destiny. And my own destiny is more than being someone's icon or poster child. So I am willing to take those steps and stand up to them.
Excellent. I know you'll succeed at this. The two then hug and head off to the next contest hall, albeit under different methods, because one of them has a flying type, and the other doesn't. But that's a dinosaur, so there's that.
Later.
How much will it cost for you to drop this? To leave our family alone and let us do what we want, David?
So you figured out my identity. Not like it was that different from me, and I'm a fucking idiot. And my answer is, enough for you to fuck off from Kalos.
Not happening. This place is so much more livelier than the Battle Maison. And besides, we have our icon back. When did I say I was staying in this corporation? What did you say, you ungrateful little shit? After everything we have done for you, to make you happy? Wrong. It was to make you happy, to keep your invasive, ridiculous organization running. You never took into account our feelings on this. You forced this on us. And when we wouldn't do things your way, you treated us like we were less than pawn scum. When you created the pawn scum that you hate. You can't completely blame us for the way we turned out, or blame us for the mistakes you made. I am currently atoning for my mistakes by facing up to you and leaving this place behind me. When will you do the same? Alright, you want out of this family? Fine, but we do it on my terms. A battle where we use our aces. You, that is a failure of a man who's corrupted you, versus me and your father. If you win, I will let you go. But if you lose, you'll be left with nothing.
And so the double contest battle began. David and Susan threw out Lucario and Gardevoir, while the parents sent out their aces, Ursaring and Altaria. Both were evenly matched at the start, but as the match continued, the two parents were slowly gaining an edge due to their experience as a duo. As they finished another move that put David and Susan in the 50% range, Ursaring went in to finish off the Gardevoir with a Giga Impact, but was then hit by an Aura Sphere from behind, stopping him in his tracks. As the bear got back up, its eyes widened as he saw that he was surrounded by multiple Lucarios, and his legs were trapped by bone clubs.
What the?
That's right! You're surrounded by Lucarios and Aura Spheres from all sides! You're done! The mother saw this and wasn't going to let this happen, so she charged towards the Ursaring, but it was too late.
Now! It's over! 20-meter radius! Aura Sphere Storm!
Ursaring was out, cutting their point total in half.
I'm done playing around! It's time I show you why the Battle Maison in other places feared me!
She then pulled out an Altaria and activated it, bringing out Mega Altaria, who then proceeds to light its wings on fire, take out the clones of Lucario, before proceeding to hit Lucario head-on with its flames, setting it on fire, before dodging Gardevoir's Shadow Ball and removing the flames on its wings with a spin. But Lucario wasn't down and out yet, as it pulled out two Bone Clubs on its own, because David was fucking petrified again, dipped it into the flames, and managed to turn the Bone Clubs into makeshift fire batons before throwing it at Altaria, with Gardevoir using Thunder Wave on said bones to add an extra status condition. So even with Altaria removing the flames from the clubs, it was still hit with paralysis and the Bone Clubs, bringing down the point total more and leading the two teams to tie with a minute left to go. The mother then decided to end this with a Draco Meteor infused with a Dragon Dance, creating a massive meteor in the sky. Susan and David turn to each other before the two proceed to nod and prepare their counterattack. An Aura Sphere Shadow Ball combination, with the Aura Sphere morphing into a Shuriken, thanks to Gardevoir's psychic abilities. The attacks collided with each other and were even, to the point where neither was moving an inch and creating pressure, culminating in an explosion that engulfed the arena in a white light for a bit, but when the dust settled, the sky/upper area of the arena was engulfed in an Aurora Borealis, amazing the competitors as well as Altaria and Gardevoir. But where was Lucario? Well, at the very top of the ceiling. See, there was also a huge moon above the Borealis, except that was no moon, and as it got closer, it began to show bluish, and then it turned out it was a massive Aura Sphere heading right for Altaria. Altaria tried to fire another Draco Meteor at it, but Gardevoir infused the Aura Sphere with Dazzling Gleam, turning the Aura Sphere white and pink and slowly crumbling the meteor away. Shall we, partner?
Let's.
Dazzling Aura Sphere!
Lucario fainted, using up the last of its energy in that attack, but Altaria was still standing, albeit barely. The two fairy types stared each other down, both extremely exhausted. But after a few more seconds, Altaria fainted, giving Susan and David the win. The mother was silent for a minute before sighing and returning Altaria to the ball. As David and Susan were celebrating their victory with a hug, the mom walked over to the two alongside her husband, and the two teams faced each other once more.
Well done. Very well done. I see now that what truly makes you happy won't be found as long as you're with this corporation. A pity I only realized this after getting knocked down a peg. But, like the phoenix you represented under us, this is your resurrection. A new you. Make it count, my child.
Susan smiled, and the two hugged it out before the mom gave her back her Dull Caddy, which was in the Pokeball the parents took back in the first contest.
The battle Maisons are still an eyesore, but maybe us and the Maisons can work out some sort of compromise now that I think about it. Especially after this battle, and then go from there.
Contests are pretty fun, but variety is the spice of life, and I'm sure both of you can find some compromise, and the same goes for the other regions. The two agreed, and after that was done, Susan was officially released from the company and was now preparing to go on her own journey to find her new purpose in life. David and Susan wished each other the best of luck, promised each other they would have a rematch to see who is superior as a coordinator, and went their separate ways. But before Susan left, she turned around and gave David a kiss on the lips, much to his surprise. After that awkwardness passed, David also began to walk his own path, specifically to a center to update his boss on what happened.
Well done, David. We've been unable to locate Vincent, so until further notice, we'll keep you in Kalos. So now that you've got your Pokemon back, maybe do some Mega Evolutions or something.
And so a week or so passes by, and David unlocks Mega Evolution for Lucario and Lopunny. After this, he decides to go check on Fawn and see that she's doing slightly better, as she is currently helping her grandparents run the daycare and slowly returning to a normal life, giving David an egg before leaving, and also as a gift for helping her break free. As for Susan and Fire, well, Susan told David via a call that she's currently in Kanto, preparing for her new journey, and Fire is helping run the resort with his dad. But before leaving, Fire and David have a Mega Evolution battle, and David loses to a much more experienced Mega Lopunny. The two then shake hands and wish each other well, before Fire proceeds to get a call from a certain friend of his. Sometime later, the egg hatches into an Eevee, and then it evolves into a Leafeon after an encounter with a mossy rock. It's another week after this event that David gets a call from his boss.
Finally found you again. I don't know how, but we had a bit of an issue pinging someone else's frequency, but it's fixed now. Now then, we are still unable to find Vincent, so we're calling off this mission.
I understand. However, is it fine if I head off to Alola? Not for a vacation or anything, but because of a hunch.
Go on.
You ever see those movies where the villain plans to hide from the authorities via a secret beach or illegal waters, that kind of stuff? Well, if Vincent were to hide, wouldn't it make sense to hide in a place as unknown and or as secretive as Alola? Plus, hey, worst case scenario is that we can also register some new specimens for the Global National Dex.
Well, we have had problems registering Alola mons, so
That's true. And
well, if Vincent is there, that's also helpful, so alright, we'll send you there.
And so David begins his journey to Alola. And that is the end of Chapter 2. I'm really sorry for the length about this one, it's just that I had a lot to cover. Now, hopefully Alola will be a bit shorter than this. The keyword is hope. So until we meet again, I'm David Grimm, and thanks for watching.
Thank goodness, we had a hard time locating you, David.
excuse me, I think you got the wrong number.